Kia ora tātou. A kanui te mihi I tai mai mātou kōrero ki te kōrero. Kia ora everybody. I just going to do a little presentation on the question that's been raised by people about the 1835 document, He Whakaputanga o Te Rangatiratanga. And the annexure, I'll call it the Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And the wanting of knowledge about these documents. This little presentation this evening is in regards to a mindset that I'm going to indicate that's required to read those documents in the perspective to get a true understanding, in my opinion, of the components of the document, and the more to the point, the mindset of the authors that authored the document. Where was their thinking? What kind of upbringing did they have? What kind of knowledge did they hold? And what kind of āhua they had as far as the status is concerned regarding the Taha Māori world and their ability to perceive the future. And I'm going to indicate very clearly that that required a specific type of thought process. It required a specific type of thinking, and as I've indicated, a knowledge base that is not truly present today. So the concern that's been raised is that when we read a document that's been colonized by the Western world, that's been written by our ancestors, we don't capture the true meaning of what our ancestors were indicating or trying to leave behind for those of us in the future. So, but before I begin, I just want to acknowledge the people who have subscribed. I don't know who a lot of you are, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for subscribing to this. If there are questions that you want to, I'd like to get to know you in a positive way. And if you have questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer those questions the best way, or you just want to have something to share. But in saying that, thank you very much for joining us in our discussions regarding ultimately He Whakaputanga, and more to the point, Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So in saying that, the mindset in a contemporary language that I'm going to indicate that our ancestors had, or our tupuna had, when they wrote the 1835 document, and the analogy that they used to perceive what the future was going to look like. And, you know, this is a one-page piece of paper, and the concerns that it's caused in one of the last releases that we've had, we are very mindful of the academic minds that have attempted to translate, or have attempted to read, or have attempted to diagnose the kupu within the document, has clearly, from what the knowledge is about the document, been missed. And I want to indicate that we seem to read the document and we drift over from a tikanga world or Taha Māori world into the LAW world or the colonized world very quickly, and miss the true essence of what our tupuna left. So in saying that, I'm going to use some English emotional words to explain the type of mind that our tupuna had when they wrote or authored the He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And I would like to also indicate that it's very important that your mind is of the same, and I'm not here to challenge anyone's intelligence whatsoever. I'm just here to try to assist with the questions that are being consistently asked. How do we find out more about the document, and how do we find out more about the past, and what was it that they left behind, and why is the document causing so much controversy for people and for governments? As we know, the document was written some time ago, and the successive governments that they've tried to hide it, they've tried to say it's not valid, they've tried to indicate that it was superseded by their law. I want to assure everybody with an analytical mind, and I'll use that word, which I'm going to say that our tupuna had when they authored this document. It has a partner. The analytical mind has a partner or an antithesis, and that antithesis is called the reactive mind. And the reactive mind has an ability to transform the truth into a lie, or transform the truth into a perspective that doesn't actually exist, that's been made up and turned into a fairy tale. And I do understand the reasoning around why it's difficult to read the document with a reactive mind or with a colonized mind, because of those, the authors. One of the ways that our ancestors used, that I'm very, very familiar with, in ensuring that an analytical mind stayed in place and the reactive mind didn't have the opportunity of infiltrating the taha Māori mind or the taha Māori thinker, was the art of debrief. This was very, very critical in the times of our ancestors, right back to pre-contact, pre-colonization. They would debrief daily. At the end of every day, our tupuna would sit together and they would debrief. Depending on the activity of that day, they would debrief till early hours of the morning, to ensure that, as I've said, the reactive mind didn't have an opportunity to infiltrate. There was another method that was used, and this particular method here I want to advocate for the purpose of, and it's to do with our statistics that tangata whenua suffer from: the suicide, the mental health, the drug and alcohol abuse, the incarceration, the joblessness, the homelessness, the low profile for education, or the education of another culture. So whether we're profiling that we're stupid or not intelligent, it's only because of that culture that is trying to impose their way of educating us as Indigenous people. That gives us the ability to downgrade our own ability when that shouldn't be done, when we're, in fact, as far as our culture is concerned, we're highly intelligent, we're highly capable of facing the world, as we have done over the generations. The migration from Hawaii Nui, Hawaii Roa, Hawaii Pāmāmao to Aotearoa, the beginning of us being seafarers on the ocean, it was indicated that the seafaring for our Indigenous culture in the Pacific began, well, the other culture was still crawling out of the ocean and swinging from trees and attempting to stand on 2 feet. So we do have a culture of very, very prolific and intelligence that is equal only to the environment itself, because that's where that's what we used as a standard to live by, the environment itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use our whiteboard here, and I'm going to just try and give an explanation on what first and foremost, in a simple explanation, what first and foremost is an analytical mind. And we all have an analytical mind. Every living thing on the planet has an analytical mind. Even a tree has an analytical mind, unfortunately. But how the reactive mind infiltrates and takes over our analytical kindness, if I can say it like that. And I want to highlight strongly that those statistics that I've mentioned, and there are many, many more, actually a consequence of the reactive mind that does exist in our everyday life with everything that we do. Just to begin a brief oral explanation of how a reactive mind behaves, and more to the point, the length of time that it can stay in you. We do have a solution on how to remove the reactive mind. As the first and foremost is to acknowledge it. that the reactive mind has certain behaviors. But there was an example where a woman, a mother of a baby, was being assaulted by her partner. And during that assault, she was made unconscious. And in her unconscious state, a motorcycle went past her kitchen window and a glass fell off the bench and smashed. And so that developed a reactive opportunity for her. So how it arrives again is many, many years later, she was sitting at a cafe with her son, who was now a teenager. And at a point in time, a motorcycle went past the cafe where she was sitting on the footpath. And her son accidentally knocked the glass off the table. So those two symbols happened at a specific time, right in the same timing of the incident that took place. And it threw her into her reactive space of reliving that event that that had happened when that motorcycle went past and that glass fell off when she was being assaulted by her partner. And so that created her to behave badly to her son. And the emotion that she exposed with her son later on in life was exactly the same emotion that was had during the assault, if I can say it like that. And I want to be as kind as I can when I'm using that example as a story to explain this. So when I say that everything has an analytical mind, so what I'd like to do is, in the old days of the old movie theaters, there was in the projector box behind everybody up in the roof, there was if we remember, there were the reels, the old reels that a movie transferred often off their tape through the projector and then came onto the other tape that was there for it to fill. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a little design of those two tapes. And the tape is moving from one reel to the other. Okay, so we can look at that perspective as being real time. Okay, this is real time. This is actually what actually happens in an analytical mind. So what's recorded in here on your entire life is what's actually happening in your day-to-day life. So how the reactive mind takes an opportunity of this, if you cast your mind to the tape of the movie that's been transferred from one to the next, if we remember, there are little slides on that tape that show the movie as it's being played. And what the reactive mind does, it picks up one of those, let's use this one here, it picks it up and it removes it from, I'm going to say, it's the truth of what actually happens in your memory. And the reactive mind captures one of these slides and it moves it away from the truth and it moves it up to here. Okay, that's what happens. And what the reactive mind does, the reactive mind creates a whole new false story. Okay, and I'm going to indicate that governments around the world take opportunity here, and they take the truth and they feed you, they pull a piece of the truth out and they make this whole new story up, and they actually make your mind reactive. It's a consequence of some of their behavior, but we'll tone that little political philosophy down for a little bit. So what happens here is this, the reactive mind creates a negative thought from an event, from a truth, from a good event. And because of that, you've got this, whenever this happens in your life, because you have reoccurring things that happen in your life. You know, you don't break a cup once, you break a cup, you can break many, many cups, or you can trip over many, many times, or you can eat a bad apple many, many times, or you can peel a rotten banana many, many times. But it's the first time, I'll use the banana, it's the first time you peeled that banana and it was rotten. and it left a foul taste in your mouth, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this, is every banana after that, you now have caution, because that caution that the next banana you open will have the same foul taste to it. So that's what's happened here. Okay, it says that any banana you pick up from now on will have that foul taste, and it'll put you into the reactive emotion. So there is a process on how you remove this reactive thoughts. Now, just for clarification, there are, if you're of an mature age, you have many reactive opportunities, meeting new people, meeting past friends that you haven't seen for a long time. Lots of different events that should be positive for you actually end up being negative because of a reactive. The opportunity to read the document with someone else is a reactive thing. We're finding it really difficult, or it seems to be difficult for everybody to make a plan, to work together, to move together, to do things together. I'm not advocating that we need to all work together, or we need to all come together as one. I'm advocating that there are things that we can do to help one another get through life in a way where we are comfortable, and we're not going to behave in a certain way when we're faced with dilemmas or incidents or things that happen that have been labeled negative in our lives and in our thinking. So there is a method and a philosophy that is used to remove this reactive thinking. The reactive thinking or the reactive mind has to be removed. And I'm going to say this again as strongly as I can, and possibly not the last time I'm going to say this in this little presentation or corridor, is that you can't read the document with a reactive mind. One of those kupu in the document will kick off a reactive thought, and you'll miss it. You'll miss the whole context of that whole sentence. The want with reactive mind, the want to learn more is a reactive. The reactive opportunity will take place, and it'll stop you wanting to learn more. It'll stop you wanting to read the document with someone else. It'll stop you wanting to do a lot of things for yourself in moving forward. So in this debrief, and I'll call it a debrief, find somebody that you're close to, find somebody that's that understands this reactive and analytical thinking, and debrief as much as you can. Debrief through the morning, debrief in the middle of the day, debrief and talk about the saddest moments in your life with somebody, and share with them those sad moments. Because when you sit down for the first time with somebody and you share one of those sad moments that you've had, that's actually the lie in the reactive mind that's making it a sad story. And I assure you of that. So each time you tell this story again and again to one another, these parts of the reactive mind slowly remove themselves. When you tell the story for the first time, that's how it's told. When you tell the story for the second time, parts of the story start to disappear, and you keep telling the story, and the whole reactive process, your whole reactive thinking starts to fade away, and the story you're telling gets shorter and shorter. And keep telling the story, just keep telling the story, and that happens. And what happens when you get to that particular point in time, it removes itself and puts it down, and the reel rewinds right back to where that event first happened, and you start telling this story. And there, in a nutshell, and very simply, you've gotten rid of your reactive event that happened there. And you can remove a number of reactive events in your life just by working with one of the stories that you've told. For an example, just for the sake of explanation, you can remove a couple of hundred of your reactive mind, negative emotions just by sitting down with someone and sharing those sad stories with a person that you're close to, that you trust, and that can also, you can help too in that debrief process. So I hope that's been of benefit for us. I'm encouraging us to do that. I assure you that if you are to read the document today and go through this process and remove as many of the reactive mind holes that has on your analytical thinking, and then read the document again, and I assure you, you'll see the document very differently. So in saying that, huri noa, kia ora tātou.